Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books, to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Crazy Life. I'm Brian, and joining me is Henno.
Hi.
And Jen is not going to be here this week because she needs a week off, so I guess we allow it. But,
I mean, as long as you're here, that's all that matters.
I guess, yeah. I guess it's the Crazy Life with Brian and co-host. No.
Yeah.
Nah, not
There
really.
will never not be a Crazy Life sans Brian.
It would be weird at this point, right? I mean, this is our 351st episode.
And you've been on every
I've been
one.
on every one, yeah.
Yep.
Because you guys always work around whatever I've got going on, so
Yep.
it's kind of wild. Salty Language, I can't say the same thing on. There's a few without me, but for good reasons, like a horrible gout attack or I don't remember. I feel like maybe I had food poisoning one time or something like that. There were a couple times where I just couldn't go. Had to be game time decision, So yeah. I don't know who goes first this week. We were both here last week. What do we do,
Exactly.
Henno? What do we do?
I don't know.
Well, why don't you go first since I've got the topic, if that's all right.
that'll
with you.
work.
Yeah.
That works. Let's see. What's new and exciting? I have really been enjoying doing nothing.
Okay. That's
And it hasn't been nothing. I mean, I've been doing things, but I've just been enjoying not having anything on my plate or my schedule.
yeah.
And it's been a great feeling. And if you're going to love this one. One of the things, I'm continuing on my clearing out the clutter. And I started working on the car to sell the car. And the last time it needs a couple of small leak repairs, but the main thing is the motor for it's all the the powered windows, the powered door locks, all those things actually work on this thing, considering it's from 1982.
Nice.
It's amazing. But the driver's side power window motor completely froze up, so I got a new one. And then when I got it, I realized I needed some gear assembly, so I ordered that. Now this was 3 years ago, roughly, or
Right.
two.
Right.
So when I got into it, whatever it was, a week or so ago, and I opened up the door again, I looked in there, and I was just like, I have no idea how this came apart. I was like, oh no.
Right.
So I'm looking. So and the best part is that everything's in a box. So at least I had the stuff in a box, and I'm looking at it going, okay, well, what came out with it? And I'm like, I don't have the old motor on this, so I can't. I've got the new motor. I don't have the old motor, and I'm like, there's a bunch of plastic parts here. I'm like, oh, here's this box. What's in this box? I open the box. I'm like, okay, there's the gear. Okay, all right, that goes here. And then I'm like, it looks like there's a screw that goes here. I don't remember. I'm like, oh, I am so screwed.
You're gonna have an IKEA car with just extra parts or whatever.
Oh, yeah. So I just started looking at pictures online because there's nothing better than I just go onto eBay and people are selling the parts.
Yeah.
So I can see original parts or even, what was great is I bought a repair manual. I bought a full Chrysler repair manual, like from the factory, which is awesome. And then I bought just the regular kind that you get at the auto parts store. And when I was in the trunk looking for something, I found that there already was one in there. Or no, it was under the seats.
Oh, wow.
I was looking under the seats for something. I'm like, oh, they'd already bought one of these. I'm like, cool. It was really funny because I was like, and it was old. Like,
yeah.
The one that I found was legit from like the 80s.
Yeah, my dad used to have a lot of those from, years of working at a body shop. He had all sorts of, manuals like that.
Yeah, the funny thing was when I opened up the newer one and the older one, it was the same pictures.
Right. They didn't even update them. Wow.
Yeah, they're very generic, because there's so many variations, especially in the body sections.
Right.
Yeah, so that was kind of funny. So I put in 2 nights doing that. And then of course I promised myself I would do that during the day, when I had my day off from work, and that didn't happen. But the one thing I did do, the one thing I have done over the last couple of weeks that was really, again, it's like those little bits of, you can chip away at something that's been kind of weighing on you for, like every time you. Every time you open up a closet and you look at something, you're like, oh, I got to deal with that.
Yes.
Thing. And then you just close the closet door, right?
Yep.
Until the next thing you have to open the closet. So one of my things has been, I'm really good at backing up all my computers, and I do multiple backups, but my system isn't that great, and I've now changed computers like several times. Well, I still have backups of old computers. And I've never gone through them, and they just take up space. Again, something's taking up clutter. So what I did this last week is I went through and I actually culled all of the old backups of anything that I knew was unnecessary.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's kind of a big deal because some of these things are really old.
Right.
Like I've got backups of computers from over 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe not that entire.
Yeah.
Well, actually I did have a complete backup of a computer from 10 years ago, but there's been multiple copies since then.
Right.
And it's time consuming to go through and just combine them all and make sure, and then get rid of the stuff that you don't need.
Right.
Or will never be useful. But I did all that, and when it was all said and done, I had a hard drive, and it was all, it had lots of extra room now, and it just felt really good.
Yeah.
And now I've got my new laptop set up. I've got my my external display set up, and my old computer's down in the basement, and I just connect into it like it's a virtual server, and it's been pretty cool. And like downstairs. We've had did I tell you about the mouse? I don't think I talked about the mouse.
No, I don't think so.
So we found a mouse in the house. Like I went in to grab the toilet paper, and the toilet paper's like, you have to use a step ladder to get up there. And it was clear that there had been a varmint in there.
Yeah.
And I looked at how he got up there, and I was like, okay, spray foam this, spray foam that. And I'd just been noticing, because I feed the squirrels and the birds, that there's just been, it's very clear when there's sunflower seed shells in little piles that we have someone living with us.
Right.
and like it was like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or so, I'm standing in the kitchen, in the morning drinking some coffee, and all of a sudden I just saw this little dude drop out of a cabinet, go cruising along underneath the refrigerator and head out.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I lost him. And so when one of the things, I went down in my basement, and that's the other thing that has been like, okay, I need to deal with this thing, but not right now. So I go down the basement, and there's the mouse in the middle of the floor, and he didn't run away. And I'm like, oh, he's sick.
Yeah.
And I just knew right away he wasn't well. And so he finally did scurry underneath something. And I was like, oh, man, I got to get him. And I looked under there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's really not doing well. But then he ran away a little bit, and I'm just pulling furniture away. And now I'm like, okay, this is where he's been living.
Yeah.
There was just behind all the stuff was, he had lots of supply with all the sunflower seeds and everything.
Sure.
Whatever. But whatever he ate was definitely not doing well. And the thing is, so I used to have snakes, and I would get live mice and rats, and I would knock them unconscious and then either freeze them or refrigerate them, or whichever way the snake wanted it, if they wanted them still somewhat alive, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and that was it's been 30 years now since I did that. And I just sat there and I'm like, I am different now. I am not a cold, I'm not going to go buy 30 mice and then sit there and whack them, I'm just not that same place anymore.
Right.
I really don't it hits me. If I accidentally run over an animal or something it gets me,
Sure.
right? It really does. I'm just like, wow, what's happened to me?
Well, it's like we had this week, there's this cat that's a free roaming cat in the area here, and I went last Saturday when I went to leave. I happened to see, I was like, what the hell? And I look, our screen was completely pulled off the window, like the frame of the screen, everything was pulled off the window, and I'm like, what? I walk over, there's this massive hole in it, and I'm like, oh, that explains why a couple days recently my cat was acting real weird over in the window. And that it's like we didn't have the screen. We had the other windows down, but this cat was either trying to get in the house or more likely trying to get to Callie, my cat.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, and it's like we can't. I don't want anything bad to happen to this cat, but we can't have this cat destroying our stuff, And so we tell the park about it, and they've got a trap out there for it, and it sucks because he's a sweet cat. He's really friendly and nice, and I'm the same way. It's like everything in me is like, they're like, oh, we take him, far up in Michigan and let him run free, and in my head I'm going, I still hope so, but I feel like I'm being told you're taking the cat to a farm, like.
Yeah, so I did what needed to be done.
Right.
I give him a little burial. And now at least, because it's funny for the amount of clutter that we have in this house, I'm surprised that we don't have more apartments in here, to be honest.
That's fair.
Seriously,
yeah.
I really, but I suppose the dogs help to some degree. But I mean, based on going outside, there's birds and squirrels everywhere in the yard, and my dogs are just asleep. So
right.
Yeah. I don't know when they become useful. To be honest, I'm not sure. But
yeah. Well, it's like my cat's like afraid of shadows, but we've had 2 mice in here in the times I think I've lived here, and she's caught both of them. So it's funny that she can't, like, her shadow is like, terrifying to her. But if she sees a mouse, it's like, I will get you. Yeah. It's like,
good.
okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the dogs don't like to go down the basement at all. And even when I have taken them down there, they cower in fear. Like, it's funny how, like, you'd think I've taken them down there several times and then beat them up or something.
Right.
They have there's no reason for them to fear the basement at all.
Right.
Like they sit at the top of the stairs, watch me go up and down, but I take them down there and they want to be anywhere else immediately. So I'm like, perfect. If we get a cat, the cat can have the entire basement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That could be the litter box, and that's where mostly the mice will be if
Yeah,
they're
that's
anywhere.
true. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
The cat will love the cat will go down the basement. The cat will probably come up the stairs from the basement and look at the dogs and taunt them.
Probably.
You know?
Yeah, that's pretty standard
Just
fare.
because that's what cats do.
Well, also
So,
your dogs are fairly small, so the cat will actually be similar in size to the dogs.
Yeah. Well, I had Bogart had an eye thing, and I took him to the vet on Friday. And it's amazing, like he's just this sweet, sweet old dog. And I was telling everyone there about how he has this incredible prey drive. If he sees deer or cows or cats or whatever, he loses his mind and instantly wants to attack. And everyone was looking at me like, you're nuts. And then all of a sudden this cat came in and he went to go sniff. The cat was in a carrier.
Yeah.
But he went to go sniff the carrier, and once he realized what it was on, and I was having to pull him back by the leash, and everyone was like, wow. I'm like, I know, he's like the sweetest old dude, but
yeah,
it's like he just has this thing, and I'm like, that's why we can't. I don't think Benny or Gizmo could care less if we had a cat. They'd be totally into it. But anyhow, I'm really trying to take advantage of this time off right now to do nothing, to give to catch up on some TV shows, but at the same time to also continue to do things that I know are going to help me and help my mental health. And part of that was also, none of you can see this, is I shaved my head, so I haven't cut my hair in 3 years, and so my hair was really long. Anyone that has seen my either Facebook or Instagram would know that. But it was Saturday. Actually, it started on a Friday. It was my first Friday where I had nothing going on, and I got up and I had that, that classic thing where you look at all of the stuff that it's not necessarily need to do, but want to do.
Yeah.
Because I want to do something, but there is so much between the trip down the basement, the trip upstairs, looking at my desk, walking over to, some music gear, the stuff I want to sell, out to the cars, the garage, everything. And I was overwhelming myself.
Yeah.
And I was getting that feeling of, it was honestly just developing anxiety. I was just instantly getting anxious. And I was getting that frustrated feeling that comes with anxiety, and that feeling of like, it's like you almost just want to either want to rage or hide under a blanket.
Yeah.
And I was like, screw it, I'm shaving my head. And it was the best thing I did.
Right.
Because it was just like, that's gone, moving on.
Yeah.
Right? like, I don't know why that was the thing.
Yeah.
Right? It was so weird. It was like I was doing nothing. I was completely locked up. I was locked up with just the amount of everything, and knowing it's like, just do one thing. I just knew that if I did, there was one thing that was going to get me out of it.
Right.
and
well, there you go. Yeah.
Right. It was like, it was like I needed to change something. And I tie this with my alcoholism is, for me, drinking was always about, I want to feel different.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad or what, it really didn't matter.
Yeah.
I just knew that when I started drinking, I would feel different.
Yeah.
right. Now, sometimes it would be really bad, but most of the time it was pretty good. But that was the whole idea is that how amazing if I just consume something, I feel different. All right. Well, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Right.
So I have to do something else. So, you can go on a bike ride, you can go work out or whatever, I'll go do some yard work or whatever, whatever it is. I need to get out and do something different. And I think that was like the same thing. It was just like one thing I used to always do is like, all right, I'll dye my hair or I'll, whatever. I'll I'll do something to change, and this time it was shaving my head, and then from that point on it was like nice. Like it's still just baby steps, but I'm so okay with baby steps.
Yeah, right.
I'm just little improvements, do something. It's like, yeah, and then maybe make one or two big ones. Even if it's just, like I said, I took 2 boxes and I looked at the clutter on my desk and I just took my arm and I just swept it all into 2 boxes.
Yeah.
And it felt so good. 'Cause it's like, okay, let me get out the 409. Let me clean off the dust.
Yeah.
Let me,
I feel you,
put
because
back
I'm
what I need
actually,
to,
when
right?
I sat down here today, the first thing I thought was, man, I need to clean this desk off. Like it's getting, I start feeling almost claustrophobic because there's so
Yep,
much
that's it.
stuff. So it's like,
That's
it's
it.
time.
Yep. That's what I was feeling, that claustrophobia kind of anxiety over it.
Yeah.
And where you're looking at everything and you don't know where to start. And it was so nice to just get rid of all of it.
Yeah.
And have a fresh palette to say, okay, and like right now, I was like, all right, I need to organize my guitar picks. I need to organize all my little thumb drives and all that. So they're all back on the desk right now, but they're at least in little clusters that I can pick them up and put them where I want them to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my brother's doing that because my brother is, my brother's got hoarding issues, and he's finally, I think, hit his fill to where he's starting to actually work on it, which is awesome, because it's not easy. And
No.
but one of the areas he cleaned out in his house is, like, I went over there the other day and it's like full up again, but it's because he basically he's moved stuff over there, and it's like now that's the dedicated work area. So
Yeah.
he moves stuff over there. He wants to go through some stuff, get rid of some stuff, put stuff in totes so he can take it to his storage to get it out of his house. And I'm like, okay, that's still progress. Even though it's a mess again, it's like, this is a mess with purpose.
It is. It truly is. It's this corner or this section is no longer just scary. It actually is productive.
Right.
When internally, like when I look at it, I go, okay, that's there for a purpose. I'm going to do this, and this with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than it just being like, I don't even know what's over there.
Yeah. Because that's exactly where he was I'd be over there and he'd be like, I don't even know what all's over here anymore. Is there so much? And now, like I said, he's cleaned that all out. I went over there the one day and there was almost nothing over there. And I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, awesome, man, great job. And, then I go over there, like I said, I go over there the other day and he's like, I know it's a mess again, but he's like, it's because I'm like, no, that's awesome. I was like, that's cool. Like moving the mess with the intent of minimizing the mess is good. That's movement. It's like, keep your momentum going, as long as you can keep little at a timing it away, eventually,
That's it. Yep. Those they're all wins, and I'd rather be on the win side of this than the lose side.
Yeah.
Because the lose side just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and nothing happens, and I avoid it. And there's just nothing good happens in my life when I'm avoiding something.
Yeah, right.
And the last thing I'm going to share about is that ties into this is, that's my win for the week. And then the next win that I have to do for myself, the thing that I need to once again treat myself to something, which is a little bit of confidence, a little bit of ownership, is, the last couple of weeks, it's been great. There's been no band talk. The first little bit that came through this week wasn't a question. It was a schedule.
Okay.
And right away I went, nope, this is not how we should do things. I was like, it felt wrong, and I realized why it felt wrong is because there was no, hey, would you like to get together this week? How do you feel about, no, it was like, let's do this.
Oh, okay. I see.
And I'm like, why don't you ask me first if I have the time?
Yeah.
because maybe I do, maybe I don't.
Right.
And it felt, I felt triggered in a way.
Yeah.
All right, because I'd felt this like, I have some space right now, and it felt very
invasive.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was, and very presumptuous.
Yeah.
Especially when, it was interesting. My reaction was interesting, but it wasn't to avoid it. My reaction is to no, I will address this.
Yeah.
And which is just that, and I need to. I need to say something about this because I'd rather not do this anymore.
Yeah.
Because I actually had Kiki was over for the weekend and we went for a walk, and I was talking to her about how, I'm really reevaluating what I want to do with music and how much time I want to put into it right now, and what I want to get out of it, and because a lot of it is, there is a thing with age, and my motivation changes as and it should. Your age, your situation, all these things are factors.
Oh yeah.
I have friends that go around like they're still going to write a hit song, and I'm just like, dude, you're not. I'm sorry, but there's I mean, look, anything can happen.
Right, but you're like, odds are if it was in you, it would have manifested by now probably, but yeah. Yeah, like you said, you never know, but
especially if you take any time and look at social media and what's out there as far as people that are coming of age, that are discovering their passions for music, and it's really good stuff, and other young people are going to relate to this. It's like, I'm sorry, but no one's going to relate to 65-year-old you unless they've been relating to 65-year-old you since you were 15.
Right. Yeah.
Or 20
right.
or whatever, right?
Right. Like
the
Metallica's 60 or whatever. Yeah. Or 50, whatever they are now. Yeah. It's like, okay, that's fine. But yeah.
The Rolling Stones are coming out with a new album.
Yeah.
People are going to listen to it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Some random dude from a small town, sorry, but
not as likely. Yeah.
Not as likely.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, maybe you can do something and explode on the internet. But anyhow, I was kind of thinking of in those terms of like, I love writing my own music, but why do I want to do it? If I'm doing it just for me, it changes things versus if I want to actually go out and play it.
Right.
And I'm getting to a point where I really don't care to. I don't feel it. I'm actually enjoying playing other people's music.
Yeah.
Whether it's original or covers or whatever it is. I'm happy to be in somebody else's band.
Yeah.
And if I do some recording for myself, I'll do some recording for myself. If I get to record with some other people, great. But I'm having a serious, just kind of rethinking it, just to prioritize it in my head, what feels right, just put it in its right place. And then I can make the right decisions based on it. So
that makes sense. I mean, because writing and doing all your own stuff is a whole different level of work versus just, hey, I'm going to learn this song. So like you said, it's like you really got to have that passion for writing and doing all your own stuff versus noodling with some people and just having fun playing, Grateful Dead or whatever you happen to be, or even that, like that allowed you to find some interesting things in music that you hadn't found before, like an appreciation for different guitarists or whatever. And, so it's like, there's a whole nother level of passion and love that you found in playing someone else's music, so that's, it's not as though it's because I think on the surface, I don't know how to say this, don't take it the wrong way, but it's like on the surface, it almost sounds like a sad thing. Like, oh man, his passion is waning, but it's like, it's not though. It's just changed.
It's not.
It's just changed,
Yeah, it's also, the thing is with playing original music with other people, there is a certain responsibility we have towards each other. And I'm kind of actually not wanting to be responsible for anybody else right now.
That's
I
fair.
mean, it's the truth.
Yeah, that's fair though. I get it. And like
I
you
don't-
said,
I-
it'd be
I-
different if you were in a band that was on the cusp. Like you're like, man, we could break at any time or whatever. And if you don't feel that's the case, and it's like, why not just have fun and do whatever the hell you want to do? You know, like,
That's it.
you know.
There's no if I don't learn the weird Grateful Dead lick exactly right, nobody cares. And if you do, I probably don't want to play with you right now.
Right. Well, the funny
Like-
part is, right, even if you nail it, nobody probably cares because they probably,
Yes.
as long as you're in the ballpark, that's pretty much, most people aren't going to know the little minutia, you know. Some will. I mean, there's
Yeah.
obviously going to be some real nerds out there, but most people are just like, I know this song, I can jam with you, you know, or I can, you know, enjoy this, and that's really, you're reaching the audience, and that's really what you're trying to do at that point. So,
and it's a two-way street in that if I'm playing my original music, I hear it in my head a certain way, and you know, when it's not being done that way, it's kind of like the other people now feel like they're letting me down, and
Right.
it's just like, don't, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel that way, and I don't want to feel like I don't want to be on the other side of that either.
right.
And so it's kind of like it. I've enjoyed what I've been doing the last few years, but I'm realizing that some of the baggage that comes with it, I just don't necessarily need to carry that much luggage right now.
Yeah.
You know, I know that always that anytime you work with other people, whether it's art or vocational, whatever it is, these things, it comes with the territory. But in the case of my passions, I get to kind of choose how much of it I want to carry, and
Yeah.
I'm really liking some simplicity right now.
Yeah.
You know, at least for the time being.
Yeah. That's understandable,
So-
though. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, it's why I said at first I was kind of like, oh man, and then it was like, oh no, wait, it's just you're changing where you're placing the passion, and it makes so much sense because I could totally see where it'd be fun to, hey, let's just go play. I mean, you know, and it's like, you know, when you play original stuff, the crowd doesn't know it, so they can't immediately identify with it sometimes too, you know, versus you start playing Freebird, everybody knows it, you know, like there was a guy at the brewery last night
That's
we
it.
were at, and he was mixing in some original stuff in with his covers. And when he did the original stuff, you know, you could tell people were like, they're receptive, but it's like, I don't know
Oh, yeah.
this, you know, but
Yeah.
then he starts playing Turn the Page, and as soon as he starts that guitar
Oh,
lick
yeah.
at the beginning, and you're like, yeah, Seeger, you know?
I mean, it's just the way it is, and it's
Yeah.
fine. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how much effort do you want to put into it? What are you willing to do?
Yeah.
And so I think the reason I'm bringing it up is because I want this to be a check-in thing over the next few months. I want to see that am I staying true to myself, and am I putting myself into situations that make me feel uncomfortable? And clearly something made me feel uncomfortable this week
Yeah.
with the hey, let's get back to it. And it's like, hey, why don't you ask me if I'm ready?
Right.
Because maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
And so then it's my responsibility to stay that. If I'm changing the rules,
Yeah.
I need to let the
Yep.
person know that I'm changing the rules. And that made me realize that, yeah, I think I am changing the rules right now.
Yeah. That's the
So I
reason,
need
like,
to
when
be honest about that.
like on our record weeks, I usually will send out an email to be like, you know, hey, are you guys up for this week? Or, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. And it's, you know, but we also know, like, we've talked about and have the understanding of, if you can't, you can't, you know, like, that's what happens. You know, it's like kind of in the same regard, right? Like, we do this for how many ever people listen, and it's great, and we all love doing it. But in the end, it's like, this isn't like, you know, Joe Rogan's podcast. Like, we don't have that kind of reach or something to where it's like, no, we have a responsibility and we have sponsors, and we, you know, it's like, if we don't put a show up, it sucks, but hey, life happens, you know, kind of a thing. So, and I think it's important to kind of know where you stand a little bit in that, is that, are we in the middle of, hey, let's push this as hard as we can and try to make a big thing out of it? Or are we in a, hey, we're in a good groove, let's just enjoy where we're at type of a thing. And
Yeah, that's it.
I get it. That's what I said. It's because I've been in both, like when earlier on with Salty Language, Tony and I tried pushing it, and we tried, getting other shows to like help promote us and all this stuff. And I think we've reached a point to where it's like we're just, unless something freaky happens, it's like that and this show are like probably not going to like blow up or something like that. And if they do, whatever, deal with that at the time. But it's not something I'm counting on and I'm not expecting. So I'm not putting that pressure there either. Oh, we have to hit this and we have to this and we have to, like I see some people in small podcasts doing that, and I'm like, I appreciate that you want to put that much work into it, but there is an element of realism that also needs to seep in a little bit too. Like, make sure you're still enjoying what you're doing, like don't create a job that you're not getting paid for. Like if
you know what, I think you just nailed it. Like, seriously. Like, you just nailed it for me with that.
Yeah.
I
not that money is the be all end all of it either, but
no, it's not. But there is also the part where, like, I love donating my time for my passions.
Yeah.
Because it's my passion and it's really not about the money. But if it starts to feel like a job,
then I better get paid for it. I mean, that's kind of yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yep. That was
or it just, I don't want it to feel like a job, which I'd rather do.
Yes.
I would rather do something free and have fun.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah. That's why, like I said, I've seen in some of the forums online where, people talk about spending hours and hours editing their podcasts. And in my head, I'm going, are you getting paid for this? Because if you're not, why are you putting that much work into it right now? I mean, make it sound good, sure. I can see some of it, but some of these people, I'm like, they're putting like 8 hours of editing, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, think about what you would pay yourself to edit. And it's like, are you pulling in that money? Because if you're not, I don't know that it's fully worth it. But hey, whatever. If you enjoy doing it, it's fine. Like I said, no judgment. Everybody do what they want. It's just, that's my perspective on it, which anyone who listens can tell. I'm not putting 8 hours into editing of the podcast. But I also don't feel like I need to, because they're both just conversational. Yep. Especially now, like, we don't have any sound effects or anything like that on Salty Language anymore, so there's no music, there's none of that stuff. So, well, there's the intro song, which is provided by somebody. But...
Which it would be nice to have an update on that. I'd love to do an update on that.
It's really funny because the last time I listened to it, for those who don't know, Henno wrote the song to both shows. And the one that we use on Salty Language was for, God, what episode was that for? 300?
I think it might be 2.
2? Okay. And we're on so long ago. We're on 628 now.
Yeah.
And
maybe it was 3. Yeah. I think it might have, maybe it was 3.
Yeah. But either way, I've never really thought about, like, oh, we probably should, have another song, or it's just like, I think him and I just, it's like, I listen to it from time to time, and I still laugh and enjoy it every time. But it's like, if somebody was newer to the show, they won't know any of those references, basically.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, when I listen to it, I go, there's something about theme songs are like branding a logo, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a part of the sound, and you don't want to depart too much from it, but you can do a little bit of something different.
Right.
And in my head, I hear something, and it's just like, okay, I'd love to do this.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna update it a little bit, just tweak it a little.
Right.
Have some fun with it.
Yeah. That's why it was a few weeks ago, and I happened to, like, when I click play to listen back on things, I usually don't listen to the, I just listen to the podcast, and it was at the beginning, so I heard everything, and I was like, man, I haven't listened to this in a long time. And, but it was like, but I'm gonna listen to the whole thing, because it's just nothing but not inside, but it's like, it's all show relevant jokes through the whole thing. So it was references. So yeah, if you haven't listened to it, definitely go check it out, and check out the one for this show too, because it's a good song too. So Henno worked super hard and
thank you
whatever on him. So there. So so do you have any more? Or were you wrapped up?
Yeah, what's going on with you?
Well, so my My birthday was yesterday, and
Yay! Happy birthday!
thank you. Yeah, I turned 45, which is weird because age really doesn't. I don't know. It's weird. Age has never really mattered to me. Like since I've turned 21, right? It's like okay, I can pretty much do everything you want to do except run for president. So, and now I'm 45, so I definitely could run for president if I want to. But it's weird that I looked at. It's not so much my age that hit me a little bit this year, but it was my siblings' age. My oldest sister turned 60. The next oldest sibling is going to be 59. Then there's like 58, and it's like the closest sibling to me turns 50 this year. And it's just like wow, we are all almost 50 or older now. Like, I'm the only one that isn't, and I'm 45, so I'm a good, I'm a pretty close clip to it now. So it's like, wow, you just, it's not so much about feeling old as it's just like, I hate people getting to a certain age because that's when bodies start breaking down a lot, and like you start hearing bad shit or stuff. So. But like I said, overall, it doesn't really, I'm not really bothered by it, but it was just kind of like, a brake pumping moment, kind of like, whoa, kind of a, like, wow, we're all getting pretty old here. Like, so it's like, kind of wild. 'Cause it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. I was teasing my sister for being twice my age when I turned 15 and she turned 30, And now here we are. She's turning 60 and I'm turning 45. It doesn't feel like 30 years ago. Like it's like, ooh, okay. But last weekend I went with Tony to a beer fest downtown, and we had a real good time there. Got to talk to a buddy of mine from college I haven't seen in forever, and that was a great catch up. I missed talking with him, and we're still Facebook friends, but we occasionally talk, but nothing really, and we kind of were like, hey, we really should like find some time here to hang out, and got to catch up with what's been going on in his life and everything. And he's got a coffee like food truck thing going, which is awesome. That he bartends most of the time, and now he's also doing like serving coffee with his best friend. Actually, they opened that together, so they're and he said they're doing pretty good. So I was glad to hear that, because it's it's a tough market. There's a lot of food trucks sprung up in this area in the last like 5 years. A whole lot of food trucks sprung up. We went from having there were like 3 taco trucks to now every corner you go, there's pretty much a taco truck. Which is awesome because you used to not be able to really find much Mexican in this area. Now there's a lot of it. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden this area's got a lot of Mexican food options. In fact, that was the only other food truck at the beer fest was a Mexican truck. Well, I think they had tacos, but then I just found out from Jeannie last night, apparently they had pizza too. I saw people walking around with pizza boxes, and I'm like, where do they get? And I'm thinking, well, maybe they left because there's restaurants around downtown, and there's pizza places. Like maybe they went and got pizza. Turns out the taco truck had pizza, which is weird, and I don't think it was like taco pizza necessarily. So I don't know. Maybe it was. Whatever. But yeah, we had a good time. It was a gorgeous day, and just walking around, we ended up in random conversations with just random people. Like we saw there was somebody. They have these little glasses they give you for your samples, and we saw these people. They had like beer koozies on those little glasses, and we're like, is somebody here got covers for the sample glasses? So we ask this couple, and she's like, oh no, she's like, we went over to this one booth they've got, and their koozies, if you roll it down, it fits perfectly. Apparently their koozies might have been a little snugger than others or something. So we're like, oh, okay. And then somehow we got into a conversation about how she's a paramedic and she carries around googly eyes in case she has kids that have dealt with some sort of trauma, and then she'll put googly eyes like on her glove and do a hand puppet, or put them on just to try to kind of get the kids to not focus on the trauma kind of a thing, or if they got to give them stitches or a shot or something, that you distract them a little bit. And and then they were, and I was just like, oh, I love that. And I was like, when you said that, I was like, I didn't expect you to be a paramedic. I'm like, I figured this was going to lead to you just putting googly eyes on random things, because I know of people who do that, like just out anywhere. If they see something that'd be funny with googly eyes, they'll just put them on it. And she was like, well, she's like, I wish I had a picture of it. She's like, but our trash can has 2 big googly eyes on it. And she pointed to the guy she was with, and she's like, and he put arms on it. And I was like, I love it. I was like, that's exactly what I was hoping for. And, so we talked with them for, I don't know, about 10 minutes or whatever. And we had a couple conversations like that with people. And I remember I looked at Tony at one point, and I'm like, man, I miss this. Like, I miss when we went to Beer Fest. You would just end up in conversations with people over just random stuff. Sometimes it's about beer. Sometimes it was just about who knows what. And I just missed kind of the camaraderie of everybody being there and being passionate about the same thing. It's similar like when you go to a concert. Everyone's there and passionate about at least one of the acts, typically. So it's such a cool vibe when it's like there's all these people and we all love the same thing. We know 100%, or maybe not 100%, but a large percentage, you can walk up to anybody and be like, so how about Metallica? And they'll go, right? So, and you walk up to somebody at the Beer Fest, be like, hey, what's the best beer you've had today? And it's right over, and you'll probably end up in a conversation about one of the breweries or whatever. And, it's fun to talk with people from the breweries and stuff. So it was a really good time. And, afterwards, we walked over to, there's a place called Frickers. It has like bar food, basically, chicken bites and burgers and all that kind of stuff. We went over there to grab something to eat. And it was funny because the whole day at the Beer Fest, like I never caught a buzz, because you're pacing yourself. We were there like, 5 hours. So we were there a while, and by the time we got over to Frickers, everything caught me. Like, I think it was because toward the end I was drinking a little quicker because I was trying to get more samples. And then, of course, like a dummy, we get there and I order a beer because habit. And, by the time I finished my food and that drink, and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I ate because I'm really starting to feel this beer now. I mean, I wasn't like drunk or anything, but it was, but it was cool. Our Uber drivers were both fun. One, we talked about logistics, like that Jen does for a living. Because this guy was an accountant, and he said he was switching to logistics because basically all the people he knows that are accountants are like suicidal alcoholics or drug users, because you just sit and stare at numbers all day and you don't really work with other people a lot of times. So he's like most of these people I know, as soon as like it's punch out time, it's right to the bar basically or whatever. And he's like, it's so depressing. And I was like, yeah, if that's how you feel about it, I for sure hope you get out of that field, and whatever. So, and then the guy on the way home, was a super nice older guy. And it was funny, Doobie Brothers come on whatever channel he had his satellite on. And, Tony goes, oh, nice Doobie Brothers. And this guy's like, you know the Doobie Brothers? And I'm like, first of all, buddy, I was like, I think we're older than you think we are. And Tony, and I was like, yeah, for sure. I was like, my Doobie Brothers was something that was played in my house growing up. So I, and same with Tony. I think his dad and his mom liked the Doobie Brothers. So, it was, and the guy was like, oh, okay, cool. And we were just talking about all sorts of stuff on the way home and whatever. So it was, it's nice when you get pleasant drivers that are, that don't give off like a creep vibe. And the only thing I didn't like about the first guy was he kept looking back while he was talking to us, and his driving was affected by that. And in my head I'm going, eyes on the road, dude. Eyes on the road. like you don't need to look at us to talk. But anyways, it was overall a really fun day. And like I said, a gorgeous day. It was nice to spend a day outside on a really, really nice day. And but the next day I was very much like, social hangover kind of situation. Like, yeah, I'm glad I don't have anything going today. I'm gonna kind of just lay in bed and recharge. So, and then last night I went with Jeannie and Jen and some other friends of ours up to the brewery up the street here, and there was a guy playing music, and we sat outside because again it was a really nice night out. It was it was in the 60s still while we were up there, so it was really nice, and we had some beers and conversation and everything, and so it was a good birthday. So it was
Cool.
yeah, and it's nice, it's like I'm past the point to where it's about like getting anything, type of thing. I mean, although last night I didn't pay for a beer on the night, so because every time I was out, somebody was like, "What are you drinking?" So I was like, "Okay." Like it's always nice. Like I don't assume anyone's gonna buy stuff for me because I'm just not that person. I'm usually the type, like if I don't have money for something, I'm the first to say it because it's like, hey, I'm just letting you know I can't go do this or that because I don't have the money. I never expect people to be like, oh, that's okay, I'll pay for you. That's not why I do it. It's just like, hey, I'm just being honest. This is why I can't go. I just don't. So, but yeah, so that was pretty cool and stuff. And the guy playing music last night, some of the stuff he did was okay. Some of it I was not a huge fan of, but whatever. It was still chill vibe type music. Like I said, he did like a couple Seeger songs, but it was more of the like Turn the Page and stuff that's a little more lower key Seeger. It wasn't more of the higher energy stuff. Most of his stuff was like that, and that was that's fine. But yeah, but I'm not at a point to where it's like, oh, I got to get a bunch of gifts or whatever. It's like the 2 nights of spending time with friends was was a good way to do that because it's something we all need, and it's always nice to feel like people care, and then of course I had all the online on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and it was funny last night my friend Josh was like, sorry I gave you the generic Facebook happy birthday, and I was like no, I was like, remember we talked about it on here, and I was like, no, I was like, because you still took the 2 minutes to type it, I was like, you didn't have to, nobody has to do that, and anybody who does, I appreciate it because you took that 2 minutes, and it's that's why I try to do it for people too, because it's it's like and I do hope people have a happy birthday because it's one of those days when people have a bad birthday, it kind of just sits with you for a while. You're like, this was my day, like why Also, yesterday was Batman Day apparently, so I thought that was kind of funny that Batman Day was on my birthday. But yeah,
perfect.
Yeah, but other than that, not a whole bunch has really gone on. I finally go back to therapy tomorrow because they had an appointment sooner than I expected, which is awesome. So I get to go do that tomorrow, which is well needed and for a reset and stuff, I think. And I'm just been in kind of a weird headspace as far as everything goes. So I think I need to get in there and kind of see what she says. And yeah. But overall, like I said, good couple weeks. And actually last week, I forgot, like Tony and I hung out twice last week. We hung out on Labor Day and Saturday, which was maybe the first time in I don't know how long we hung out in person twice in the same week. So that was good times. But yeah, good, mostly good stuff. I can't really think of much else. So, yeah. So I guess we move into the topic here because
yeah,
I can't think of. So this is one I've had for a while, but it was, I remember my therapist mentioned this to me a long time ago because of my kind of all or nothing attitude a lot of times. In that, like, if I can't have it 100% the way I want it or see it happening, that I'm not going to do it at all, kind of a thing. And she asked me one day, she's like, have you tried lowering your expectations? And I was kind of like, no, why would I do that? Like, like, why would you strive for less than, type of thing. But she wasn't actually meaning it in that regard. She was meaning more of like, stop striving for perfection, you know, because as we've talked on here plenty of times, like perfection is not something you ever achieve. It's you know, it's just something you chase. So this article here is 5 ways to lower your expectations, which is part of what caught my attention because I had talked with her about this, and then like a few weeks or whatever later, I saw this, and it kind of made me laugh because you know, there's some of these mental health articles that you read, and when you read the headline, you're like, huh? You know, like that doesn't. So the first one on here is don't expect what you don't do yourself, which that feels like there's that Simpsons where Bart has that thing, and it's like don't do what Donnie don't does. So it was don't expect what you don't do yourself. You always need to remember that before you expect something out of others, you should have actually achieved that goal yourself, says Dr. Vora. Self-introspection and asking yourself questions like, why do I even have that expectation from another person may help. You will have to get away from the typical notion of anything less is a result of abject failure. I always had that attitude where, like, wherever I worked, was I wouldn't ask somebody to do something I'd never done myself, basically. You know, like I'm like when I'd ask somebody to mop the floor or vacuum or clean the bathrooms or any of those jobs that nobody really wants to do. It's like, hey, I've done them too, and I would do them also. You know, like most of the times when I worked with somebody, I'll be like, if you vacuum, I'll clean the bathrooms, because vacuuming kicks up so much stuff that it would just make me miserable. Oddly enough, the cleaning supplies bothered me less than the dust from vacuuming. So. And people would always be like, "Okay, deal," because nobody wants to clean the bathrooms, you know. So, the second one is don't set sky-high goals for yourself. You'll have to start focusing on yourself and expect only what you can really achieve. Dr. Sandeep suggests that practicing an exercise like standing in front of a mirror every day and asking yourself, "Why do I have this expectation? Is it even required at this juncture of my life? What will be the pitfalls if I am unable to achieve the set goals? Or is it okay for me to have such expectations of others?" will help in clearing your mind and having expectations that are easily fulfilled. I think that's a big one, you know, like not, you know, if you set out to do whatever it is, music, art, something like that, right? Like if I sit down to draw something, I'm not expecting it to be in, you know, the like Detroit Art Museum tomorrow, you know, like you don't like that's setting a goal that's an unreasonable goal. If you end up there, that's fantastic, but that's generally not why you set out to do something. But we tend to do this a lot. Like I know I do anyway, is I just set my goals way too high that it's like if I can't dominate or I can't achieve that highest level, it's like, why am I even doing this? You know, and that's just insanity. It's like right now, like I still do it from time to time. I'll look at like artists that are professional artists, and in my head it's just like, why even bother? They're so much better than you. And it's like, yeah, they're also on a different level than you. Like you're not there to where you really should be comparing. Don't compare yourself anyway. It's a bad, you know. But it's like even if you were comparing yourself, it's like you're not there. You know, like that's, you know, you need to be reasonable with where you are in things as well.
I like that. That's kind of like what I'm doing right now. Just with music is I am looking in the mirror and saying, why do I, you know, why am I setting this expectation?
Yeah.
What, you know, and what is it doing for me? You know, like what's the motivation, right? I think that's something that one of my mentors, he would always, you know, he would anytime he brought that up, he was like, like wow, how did I not predict he was going to ask me that? What's your motive?
Right.
What's your motive? And every single time he did, I'd be like, he got me again. I'm like, why is it such a simple question I can't ask myself?
Right.
You know,
yeah, it's the first
true
question he
motive?
asks you. Yeah, it's the first question he asks you every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know, and really for me, and especially when it came down to, and when I'm talking about alcoholism, I'm talking about the things that the things about my personality that that was outside of the drinking.
Right.
So the ego, false pride, people pleasing, which are they all end up being about self, right?
Yeah.
They're all the things about self. And it's like, okay, is your motive self-centered or other-centered?
Yeah.
And then if it is self-centered, is it about self-care or selfishness?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And those are all good questions. And I think that's really important to ask about expectations.
It is. Yeah.
And are they, are your expectations leading you towards your goal or actually leading you away?
Yeah. Well, like, think of it this way too, right? Like when your expectations are set too high, like for me, is by setting my expectations at the level that I do a lot of times, it leads to inaction.
Yes.
So like you were saying, it's like, I'm certainly not, I'm not moving at all. I'm not moving toward my goal but I'm between a moving toward or moving away. It's more moving away because the more anxiety that builds there, realistically, the gap between where I am and where I'd like to be widens the whole time because you keep adding reason on top of reason on top of reason to, and then it's like, well, now in order to chip away at that, you've got 800, air quote reasons you need to chip through to actually get to action, and it so it's for sure something that can lead to just inactivity. And like you said, it's like, and it ends up leading you away from where you want to go instead of toward it. And that's no good either. We've talked plenty of times, right? Like progress over perfection. And that's really what a lot of this is very much, moving toward your goal at all times is much better than inactivity or stagnation because of expectations. So
yeah, and I think the expectations and the baby steps go hand in hand.
Yeah.
That it's I think it's part of the book Laws of Spirit, which I call it's spiritual training for dummies, kind of like, it's like it puts it real simple. And one of them is, he brings up the example of hiking up a mountain. And if you keep looking at that mountaintop, it looks so far away.
Right.
Versus, why don't you just look at where your feet are for a change?
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're at the mountaintop.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's totally true because you're right. Because when you stand at the ground and you look at the summit, you're simply going to go, that's too far.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you pay more attention to the climb, and then at some point you happen to look up again, you're like, oh wow, I'm halfway up the mountain.
Yeah.
It's
and you've been enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
In the meantime.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the next one is, as we've already kind of talked about a little bit, is don't compare yourself to others. What is the old saying? It's like comparison is the thief of joy or something like that, I believe. And it very much is, it leads to you just like, or an activity or whatever, but it ends up, even when you do something, you write a song, you draw a picture or whatever. And if you immediately compare it to someone else, maybe you crumple the picture up and throw it in the trash. And it's like that still could have been good. It doesn't mean that it's, whatever. So, it's just different from someone else's. And
that's
good.
That's what I need to work on right now is to just, it's part of it ties back in with the last one with why do you have these expectations? And it's like, okay, so why am I comparing to somebody else? Where is this a reasonable expectation or unreasonable? And what it is it's unreasonable.
Yeah.
It may have been a lot, I talk about here a lot about there are times to set a high bar,
mm-hmm.
but there's also, there's the bar. To me, the bar should be adjustable, and I think that's what we're talking about here, right? Like, so I set a high bar on something. There's nothing wrong with that,
right?
But if the high bar suddenly has you comparing, questioning, then maybe it's time to adjust the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's what I want to do is I want to adjust a few bars and at least have something to show for some of the work that I've done.
Yeah, exactly. I could not agree with you more on that. I think that's really a really good point about that. The bar should be adjustable. I mean, there are times where you do need to compare yourself to others. Like if there's a certain level of expectation at work and it's like, am I achieving what, my coworkers are achieving as far as like the minimum type stuff. I don't mean anyone who goes on above and beyond, but it's like, am I holding my own, am I carrying my own weight here basically? Like there's less harm in that. But when it, like you were saying, it especially in creative stuff, this is a huge one for creatives is we're constantly just destroying ourselves because there's someone better. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Almost everybody that's out there, there's someone better than them. There's for sure but there's people who love it when musicians break when they sing because it feels more emotional. Well, that's not technically perfect. Maybe somebody else sings more technically perfect, but maybe you identify with that singer because or their voice isn't perfect. Like punk music's a great example, right? Like technique-wise, it is for sure not the top of the line, right? But so many people identified with it because it was very much like it was raw energy, it was the feeling, it was, But if you went to, this is how you write songs or this is how you play music book, they're going to miss on every mark, basically. But it's like if they had followed by that, oh, well, we're not technically sound musicians, they would have never bothered with their music, and so, and there's various genres that are that way that don't play inside the, the songwriting box and have had massive appeal and hits and all this kind of stuff. So, it's, and same with art. There's all these rules in art, and there's people who've broke those rules so many times over the years and turned into very successful artists, so just because you may not be, air quote, the best doesn't mean you can't also be very successful.
Yeah. And let's also not forget the physical part of our lives where we're either trying to improve our health, our physical health. We're working on, maybe we want to do a little shape shifting and change how we look. These tips are also really strong for that.
So true.
Really strong.
Yeah. You hear people all the time comparing, like, a husband and a wife, and one will compare themselves to the other. And it's like, you're totally different people. You're different genders. You're not, like, there's so many things. You just can't do that.
And relationships also. This is, I talked about that, just happened to be talking about it this weekend, about the pitfalls. There is no point where comparing your insides to other people's outsides
totally
works, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Own your own insides, make it your outsides. Yeah. Do you do you, boo.
Right. And I think,
like, really, like, find your own path.
Yeah. I think where this really shows up a lot for a lot of people too is social media. Because when we've seen, like, you scroll Instagram and all you see is, or not just there, but even dating sites. Like, I remember when I was scrolling through dating sites, and it's like, you see this woman, and it's like every picture, it's like, this one's Paris, this one's Rome, this one's, and you're just like, the vibe you're getting is like, whoa, this is really a world traveler, an adventurous kind of person. And then you read a little of the profile, and it reflects that, and it's like, I'm not that kind of person. And maybe you swipe left on them, and it's like, maybe that's not who they are. Maybe they just took one trip, hit Europe basically, and that was one or like a few weeks of their life. Meanwhile, maybe they're a homebody or something. Like, you never know, right? And it's like, so when you see that, you just immediately compare yourself to that person and go, wow, they're on a surfboard in this one, they're climbing a mountain here, they're in Rome here, and it's like, whoa, that is, like I'm not going to be a match for that person, and it unfortunately you might be, but because you're comparing yourself to what you're seeing in those pictures, you're like they live a way bigger life than I do, type of thing. So yeah, this says you should realize it's easier to have expectations of others, but achieving the same that you see in others can be disappointing. The very reason for this theory is that no two people are born with similar capabilities, talents, or wants. Every one of us wants different things out of life and should work towards that only. Don't fall into societal standards of how much you should have to be happy or satisfied. And one last thing on this one is also don't do it the other way, which is if you would react a certain way in a scenario, don't expect other people to do that. Don't, well, I would do it this way. It's like, yeah, well, they're not you, so don't put that on them as well, because again, lower your expectations to what they've shown you, not what you think they should be, because you're just going to be disappointed the other way.
A lot of ways it's not about lowering expectations. It's just about being realistic with the expectations and placing them in the proper location.
Yes,
a friend of mine was notorious for this, and she was always disappointed.
Yeah,
always disappointed in others. And when I asked about it, I said, "Are you holding them up to their own standard or your standard?"
Yep.
And just because you would do it this way doesn't mean the way that they do it is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yep, exactly.
And I do that all the time at work, and it's one of the things where I love to at least, give myself a little pat on the back is I've just learned to accept people that they get to do things differently.
Yep.
I don't get to dictate how they do things.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if I were what it would be like if I was in charge, or it doesn't matter if I was the one leading this. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They get to do things their way.
Yeah. And that's something that I run into a lot, because inefficiency drives me absolutely crazy when I'm in stores. Because I know I worked in like retail enough to kind of know how they work and like why things operate the way they do, right? So it's like when I see something that's inefficient in my head and I'm just like, that manager should this or that, and then it's like you gotta, like, you can't do that maybe there's some reason they can't, right? Maybe the company has said you do it this way or whatever it is, and it's like, you don't own the place, you're not running it, so don't expect it to be what you want it to be, because obviously it isn't. Because that's what, now, and there's times where we're talking unreasonable standards, but it's like, if there's a line with like 30 people and I'm like, okay, why are I'm not the only one standing there going, why isn't someone opening another lane, right? But it's like, meanwhile, it's like maybe they don't have the people or whatever, so there can be reasons for these things, but even if we don't like them, like you said, we don't get to dictate that. You can complain on social media to the company, and maybe that will influence policy, but you don't get to stand there and go, or walk up to the counter and be like, open another checkout. Oh, yes, sir. That's not how it works. So, yeah, this one's a really big one. This was one I've struggled with for years, and I remember, like, I had a art teacher in high school that was constantly doing that. Because, like, I was in a lot of art shows when I was in high school, but I didn't really place or win any of them. And, and I'm looking at other people that were, also in there, and they're, placing and winning. And I'm just like, why can't I get to that level, basically, And my teacher was like, did you enjoy the process? Do you enjoy the work? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he goes, then who cares? Like, why are you, and he was like, quit comparing yourself to them. He's like, whatever it is they're doing is reaching the judges, right? Like, that doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong or bad or any of that. He's like, it just means that the people who are judging that day, it's like, that's just what's tickling their fancies, So he's like, just, keep pushing your own voice. Like, don't copy them just to get in art shows or whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, because I did see that happen. There was a kid in the my class. There was a guy that was a year ahead of us that did a lot of African American art and stuff with like pastels, and it was gorgeous stuff, just beautiful. And he won, and there was nobody who questioned. Nobody was like, he doesn't deserve it. I mean, everybody was like, yeah, this dude's the powerhouse, right? Like, he's gonna get a full scholarship somewhere. And I hope he had a great career or whatever he wanted to do in life. He was a sweetheart of a kid too. But then the next year there was a guy who copied that stuff, and he got into art shows and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's like, now we would call it cultural appropriation because he was a very white guy. But he was very much taking that style, and that wasn't his style. He was just doing it to get, and I was like, you know what? Now I see what Mr. Kemming's telling me. Like, I don't want to be that. I'd rather be me than a copy, even if that copy gets praise. Like, I don't want that. I'd rather be me, and I'm okay with it. That helped me a whole lot then. Now over the years, it's somehow slipped away from me, but because, and it goes beyond even like I said, we've given a bunch of examples of comparing yourself to others, and it's like, I have issues with my self-esteem or being not enough. And when you feel not enough, you constantly are comparing yourself to others, right? Like, if you get dumped and they go with someone else, well, what do they have that I don't have? And am I lacking? And it's like, no, you're not necessarily lacking, but it's hard not to do that. I think we've all been there after, a breakup or something. And it's like, or a job, you get passed over for a promotion. And it's like, well, what do they have that I don't have? What am I lacking that kept me from getting it? And sometimes it's good. Like, in a job, it can be beneficial. Like, is there a skill set they have that I don't? Can I learn it to make myself a more attractive candidate, right? But when it comes to just like dating or anything else, it's like, yeah, you don't have to become something you aren't if you don't want to, just to, I don't know, just to up your chance. Like I was saying, be yourself, don't be a copy.
Well, I think what you just brought up ties back to the last one, where it if you look in the mirror and you say, okay, am I comparing myself in order to lead me towards a solution and action?
Yeah.
Or am I comparing myself just because I want to beat myself up?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, what's 100%. Your motive? Is this about going, okay, I see what they did. I can do this.
Right.
Or are you just, the alcoholics like to say, pour me another drink.
Yeah. That really is. And when I look at that motivation, that is what I'm doing it for. Is I think it's the distorted thinking part of my brain, is that's how it keeps you under its thumb, essentially, right? That's how that negativity keeps control of you, is that it teaches you to look in the mirror and beat yourself up because that's what you deserve. Well, if you were this, then this wouldn't have happened to you, kind of a thing. And it's like, you don't know that. Just because they're with somebody who has something you don't have, let's say, doesn't mean that if you had that same thing that you would have succeeded there, or not succeeded, but things would have continued or whatever, It's like, there's no guarantee in that. So it's not worth it. The next one here is, you have no right to expect from others, which I think we covered a little bit already. It's human nature to feel disappointed when the other person has not come through your expectations, but you need to be aware that it is not for you to have expectations from others. Just the act of letting things go or letting yourself know in a moment that you are not supposed to have high expectations will automatically help you be sorted in life. That's kind of a next level move, though, because to be able to catch that in the moment is definitely a next level thing, because it's not what we're built to do. You've got to practice to hit that a little bit.
I'll tell you, I've practiced it.
Right.
I've practiced it. It was really hard to do at first.
Yeah.
But boy, it gets easier.
Yeah.
And it really gets easier when you're around other people that think that they should be able to change everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I love to just turn it around on them and say, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
B, they don't have to change if they don't want to. And just because they do it differently doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah. It's just different.
And here's my next, and then the last one is always, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And that's the main one, because really all I'm hearing is you just want to talk.
Right.
Are you going to go have a conversation with them about this?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go over their head
Right.
in a work environment?
How prepared are you
Or
to stand or to push your point? Yeah.
Or are you just going to sit here in front of me and complain about something that you have absolutely no control over, where I could actually be doing something productive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now go away.
Yeah. Because you're right. It really does. A lot of times it comes down to a lot of this is like we want control. And it's funny because, the lowering, like we've talked on this plenty of times, right? Like the let go and be dragged and all those kind of things. It's like we find that the more we actually loosen our grip, the more control we actually have.
Yeah.
And in this scenario, if you adjust the bar, you actually find that you have more, not only do you have more likelihood for air quote success, which is going to make you feel like you have more control, more, whatever. But it's like these things are achievable, so you're going to feel like those rungs are within your reach and you can climb it. So again, it's like you feel more in control. But we have this fallacy, so many of us have this fallacy of the higher you put the bar, the sweeter the reward. And it's like, yeah, but what that tells me is you don't enjoy each step of the climb.
Well, it goes back to, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
Yeah, exactly, right? Because like you said with the mountain, analogy, it's, like if all you do is focus on I summit or I fail. Like if that's it, then it's like, wow, all that climb is not a success. Like if I personally climbed half of Mount Everest and was like, what a failure, I didn't make it to the top.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? You still climbed half of that mountain. That's an impressive feat. Especially, for somebody who doesn't climb anything. So that's why I said it's like what that tells me is that you don't celebrate the baby steps and the small wins and everything else. So, I saw somebody recently actually on Instagram. They were running their first marathon and they came up short. They didn't finish the marathon and they were kind of beating themselves up for it. And I'm like, have you ever ran a marathon? They're like, no. I'm like, have you ever ran further than you did today? No. Like, then how is this not a win? Like, This is the furthest you've ever ran. Like that's what you focus on. Next, you just get back to training. If the marathon is what you want to do, you get back to your training. Next time or maybe the time after, you'll get it. You'll eventually hit the mark. But in the meantime, just celebrate the fact that you did 3/4 of it or whatever. That's still a hell of a run. That's a lot of running, Yep. Not everybody can go do that, So find the victories, even in what you might consider a defeat. There's still victories, Find those and, was it Edison, I think, or Einstein, whoever, talking about like when you fail is where you actually succeed because you found ways to not fail. That's what you're finding, and next time I won't fail that way, like kind of a thing, so.
Yeah. I found 198 ways not to make a light bulb.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like that's how you do it. And the last one on here is, I don't know how this is pronounced, but it looks like it's Jante. So I don't know if it's Jante or Jante, but it's the Jante law, we'll say. It's a law by Danish-Norwegian writer Axel Sandemos. Has some simple rules, also known as the Fight Club rulebook, which I feel like means we can't talk about it. But if you find yourself in a situation where your ego is overpowering the other aspects, take a look at these rules. Will be helpful. Taking a look at these rules. I got to learn to read. Since such a pattern of behavior prevails across societies, these rules will help you embrace humility and have only reasonable expectations from others. These are, you are not to think you are smarter than we are. You're not to think you are anything special. You're not to think you know more than we do. You're not to laugh at us. You're not to think you are as good as we are. You're not to think you are good at anything. You're not to convince yourself that you are better than we are. You're not to think you are more important than we are. You're not to think anyone cares about you. You're not to think you can teach us anything. It's really funny reading those because they feel so negative until you stop and go, no, the point is that you're not supposed to think about any of these things. It's not that they're telling you you're not good enough, you're not smart, you're not special. It's that you're not supposed to focus on thinking about those things. Stupid philosophy. But it says, remember that this will not immediately lower your expectations. You will have to practice them consistently. Changing the way you perceive things, make efforts, and eventually you will be able to let go of your expectations to lead a happy life.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of it is just so much about just getting out of yourself, self.
Yep.
And because it just took me forever to realize that my lack of self-esteem was as much the same as my overinflated sense of self.
Yeah.
And that they were both from the same source.
Yeah.
You know, it took a long time for me to get that. And, you know, once you do, I think, at least for myself, I think I was able to set reasonable expectations, you know, and find more joy. And I think that's really what it comes down to is it's those old phrases you've heard a million times about, you know, that do you love what you do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you happy? That, you know, why are you doing it? You see these business owners that are just like, I love what I do. I love my job.
Yeah.
That's why I do it. It's because I love it. The fact that it's made me money and brought me a living, awesome.
Right.
But my primary motivation is because I love to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that, like, for myself, that's how I'm reflecting on right now, is like, I have these things that I love to do, and I just want to set, not only reasonable expectations for myself, but people can have their expectations of me
Mm-hmm.
all day long.
Yeah.
But I'm only going to be able to bring so much to the table.
Yeah. Well, and like that one rule here just said, right? You're not to think anyone cares about you, meaning, and I take that as a, you know, you've also heard other people say what others think of you behind your back, or what they say behind your back is none of your business, kind of a thing, right? And it's the truth. Like, hey, if you have expectations of me, that's on you, not on me. Like, I'm just going to do my best and try whatever I can here, but if I miss the mark in your book, that's on you, not me.
Yep. This is what I can bring to the table right now. This is what I will, and this is what I'll commit to. And these are based on my, you know, mental health, physical health,
Mm-hmm.
family life, you know, the other commitments I have in my life. And I want to, you know, I keep referring back to that idea that the thing I was reading about was there's no such thing as balance in life.
Yeah.
Because I'm totally okay with it. I get that. We have times in our lives where nothing is ever balanced, and I think that's an unreasonable expectation that somehow I'm going to find balance.
I agree, and I with you on that. Is like I really feel like balance really is right there with perfection, in that we're always off kilter one way or the other, but we're also constantly adjusting. Like, just because your weight's on your back foot doesn't mean that's where we keep it for lengths of time. Typically, we're usually trying to adjust, like our brains do it, right? There's actually a topic I sent stuff to you about that I wanted to talk about, that the woman talks about that, to where, like, whatever good we do, our brain immediately will produce bad to balance it. So if we go too far one way, you get a big spike of negativity, essentially, to balance things back out. And it doesn't really work that way. What ends up happening is you keep the scales moving up and down. And, you know, and that's where I think life really is most of the time we're constantly just adjusting our weight. But we think when we get, you know, when the water's calmer that means balance, and it isn't necessarily the case. You know, it's just not as choppy is all it is.
Yeah, and I really think it has to do with also, you know, some reasonable. I think this topic is great towards that, reasonable expectations, and just, again, I can be different sizes based on the time of year, what else is going on in my life.
Oh yeah, totally.
And right now, I kind of feel like being a little small.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. I want to be a little small.
Yeah.
I did a summer of big.
Right.
Really,
Yeah.
I went big.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And I'm happy I did.
Right.
I'm really happy. Now it's time for a little small.
Right. Well, so
And I'm totally good with that.
Yeah, and you should be, right? Yeah. That's what my therapist originally, when she was talking to me about this, that was kind of she was really pointing out, because I have, as you know, it's been well documented on here, I have a habit of not being great at celebrating the small stuff. Like I'm a big, if it's not a big win, it's not a win, is the way my brain always is talking to me. And like that's why the other reason, like she was saying, she's like, if you just adjust the bar down a little bit, she's like, I'm not talking crazy, but just a little bit, like, and she goes, then you meet that bar, and then you still get that dopamine fix of success, that your brain, that your negative brain is still like telling you, well, if I don't hit this, it's not a win. Well, if this is the bar now and you hit it, you still get that win, and you still get that fix. So then you just adjust the bar up a little bit at a time, and she's right, is that high jumpers don't start out at like 10 feet in the air. They start out lower, and over time you train to hit 10 feet in the air or whatever, and then that's basically what she's saying, is that if you don't aim for the very top on your very first try, I'm not going to just pick up a guitar and be Jimi Hendrix. Like it doesn't so much work that way. So, and I was like, it feels so counterintuitive to not shoot for the top, because so many things are jobs and school, you're supposed to shoot for A's in school, at work, you're supposed to do all you can do, and all this kind of stuff. And to then go, oh wait, actually I need to dial this back a little bit and be more reasonable, because it's better for my mental health, or it might be your physical health too. Yep. But whatever it's for, it's just better for you in the long run. So yeah, hopefully this will help some people. Like I said, I know it kind of sounds a little maybe weird to some people. If it sounds weird to you, you're probably similar to me in that your brain wants to shoot for 100%. But you don't have to hit 100% in life. Like there's so many times where way under 100% is still plenty good, and you can still do very well, and be successful, happy, all that. And like you said, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And between the two, I'd rather move towards happy than right all the time. Even though the way my brain works, it tells me I want to be right, and that's way more important. But that's a topic for another day. So, all right. Well, I think we're good there.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Wow. I don't have the links pulled up. Oh my goodness, I'm a mess today. Yeah. Well, this is the part where Jen always says, if you'd like to continue the conversation, you can find us over our website is thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. Our email is thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. If you want to reach out to Jen, you can hit her up through the email or over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. You can find me on most social medias or any social media I'm on. I'm pretty much on at Stunami. My other podcast is Salty Language, which can be found on Twitter at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. And that show is not safe for work. And we talked about the local taco wars recently, the Toledo Beer Fest, me trying a new kind of apple, the PlayStation Portal, and some other stuff this week. So if any of that sounds good to you, please give us a listen. But it's not safe for work, so please be careful who's in the car with you. So. All right, Henno, how about you?
You can kind of find me on Facebook and Instagram these days, posting pictures of squirrels and birds and wildflowers and my dogs occasionally, and that's about it. What the band is doing, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. That's feeling about the right amount of interaction in my life. I'm a lurker on TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying stuff on there, you know.
Yeah. I get sent stuff by people off and on, but I'm still not on TikTok. So yeah.
There's just some great stuff on there.
Yeah.
It's
I just
really fun.
already got enough that keeps me on my phone too much. So but
Yeah,
yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. There's only so much attention, right?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, with that, I guess, as usual, I say if you're struggling and you need some help, please reach out. There's all sorts of people out there willing to help you. There's some helpful links and numbers in our show notes or over on the Facebook page if you're looking for some help. Like I said, please reach out if you need something. If somebody in your life is struggling, or even if they're not, just reach out, make sure they're still doing okay and whatever. Or if you haven't talked to somebody in a while, maybe reach out and just check in on them. And then also, just please be kind. Please put out some good energy out into the world here, because there's again, it's like, every time I see something massive happen in the world that's tragic, the response that you see from people is immediately like, how can we help? And for all the people out there saying that the world is cold and people are hateful and all this other stuff, it's like, there's a whole lot of us that aren't, and there's a whole lot of us that are not trying to, harm people and be mean and all that kind of stuff. So, just try to be more of that kind of person, and, help wherever you can. I'm not saying financially, but, whatever you can do to help is awesome. Even if it's just, helping somebody with something that's on a shelf they can't reach or something, whatever it is. Just please be kind when you can. And yeah, I think that's all I got. So, Henno, you want to close us out?
Yeah, I think it's always great advice to be helpful to the vertically challenged, and always live your omelet and don't worry about yesterday's pizza.